Let me tell you a story about a haunted house, but don't blame me when you can't sleep tonight. In a world where secrets are currency and memories are power, there is a house. It stands at the edge of a forgotten town, a relic from a bygone era, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin. The house breathes secrets like a crypt, its whispers echoing through the vacant halls. For years it stood abandoned, waiting, and now it beckons me home. Before I begin, please take 5 seconds to subscribe and ring that bell so you won't miss any of my stories. Now let's go. The old Victorian mansion loomed over me, skeletal fingers scraping the bruised sky. Each boarded window was an empty eye socket staring into my soul. As I stepped closer, the crunch of gravel beneath my boots was the only sound daring to pierce the oppressive silence. The front door, hanging precariously from one hinge, creaked open as if inviting me in. I hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon me. Then, driven by an insatiable curiosity, I crossed the threshold and stepped inside. The interior was a labyrinth of shadows and dust motes dancing in the slivers of sunlight that dared to penetrate the gloom. Now the air was heavy with the scent of decay and the ghosts of memories past. I ran my fingers along a cobweb-draped banister, feeling a sudden pull towards the stairs. As I began to climb, the floorboards groaned under my weight, lamenting the disturbance to their long-forgotten rest. At the top of the stairs, I found myself in a dimly lit hallway. The walls were adorned with tarnished mirrors and paintings, each reflecting or depicting a fragment of the house's former glory. One portrait in particular caught my attention. It was a full-length painting of a woman in a flowing gown, her back to the viewer, gazing out a window. There was something about her posture, the way she seemed to be lost in the distant view, that resonated with a deep-seated longing within me. Her name, I learned from a faded inscription on the frame, was Isabella. And as I stood there contemplating her melancholic solitude, I felt an inexplicable connection to this woman I had never met. I continued to explore the house, uncovering layer upon layer of its history. In the drawing room, I found a diary, its leather cover soft and yielding under my touch. As I opened it, the brittle pages crackled like autumn leaves underfoot. The diary chronicled the life of Isabella, her hopes, her dreams, her fears, and her love for a man named Julian, whose name was also etched into the house's very being. Julian, it seemed, had been a sailor, and his absence left a void in Isabella's life that echoed through the desolate rooms. Outside, the wind began to rise, whipping fallen leaves into a frenzy around the house. I felt a sudden chill and realized that dusk had fallen. Shadows stretched long and distorted, taking on sinister shapes. I could hear the wind howling through the broken shutters, and a sense of foreboding crept upon me. I knew I should leave, but an unseen force kept me rooted to the spot. Then I heard it, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. It was the distinct slam of a door, but not just any door, the door at the end of the hallway, the one that led to the forbidden room, the one I had yet to explore. Curiosity warred with fear in my mind, and before I could overthink it, my feet were moving, drawing me inexorably towards the sound. The door was ajar, revealing a dark opening that seemed to swallow the little light that remained. With a deep breath, I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was a nursery, its walls painted in soft pastels, now chipped and peeling like scabs. A rocking horse stood frozen mid-rock in the corner, its glassy eyes staring blankly ahead. The remnants of a lullaby hung in the air, a haunting melody that tugged at the deepest recesses of my memory. And then I saw it, an ornate crib in the center of the room, draped with a tattered canopy. As I approached, I felt a sudden surge of energy, as if the very air grew thick and charged with anticipation. I pulled back the canopy to find a small wooden box tucked under the blanket. My heart pounded in my chest as I lifted the box, its weight surprisingly heavy in my hands. I brought it to the window, hoping the fading light would reveal what lay within. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in near darkness, I felt a cold hand grip my shoulder. I whirled around, heart hammering against my ribs, to find nothing but empty shadows. Dismissing it as nerves, I turned back to the box, my fingers trembling slightly as I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, lay a collection of old photographs and a single sapphire ring, its facets glinting faintly in the gloom. I carefully examined the photographs, each one a faded glimpse into the past. There was Isabella, her face aglow with happiness, cradling a baby boy with eyes as blue as the sea. And here was Julian, his arms slung possessively around Isabella's waist, his gaze intense, his smile both charming and enigmatic. In this picture, my breath hitched in my throat, was a portrait of the two of them as children, standing hand in hand before the same crib where I now stood. Their eyes met mine across the chasm of time, and for a moment I felt an overwhelming sense of connection, as if the years and the miles meant nothing. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, I reached for the ring. As soon as my fingers brushed its cool surface, a jolt of energy surged through me. The room around me seemed to shimmer and distort. The photographs fluttered to the floor, and I watched in fascination as the sapphire blazed with an otherworldly light. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, and I could feel the presence of unseen eyes upon me, judging, probing. Fear pricked at my skin, and I instinctively tried to pull away, but it was too late. The room spun, and I collapsed to my knees as a wave of dizziness washed over me. When I looked up, the nursery was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of colors and shapes. I struggled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest, and found myself standing in the hallway. But this was no longer the dusty, decaying place I had discovered earlier. The walls were now a brilliant white, the mirrors and paintings gone. In their place were shelves lined with books and trinkets. The air was filled with the scent of lavender and fresh-baked bread, and the sound of children's laughter echoed through the hall. At the far end I could see a woman standing in the doorway. She turned, and I saw that it was Isabella, her eyes shining with recognition. I took a step forward. She beckoned, and I felt an irresistible urge to follow. I walked towards her, and as we drew closer, she smiled, her face aglow with happiness. "Julian," she whispered, and I felt my own lips curve into a smile as I embraced her. "It's me," I murmured, surprised by the familiarity of the word. But our reunion was short-lived. A sudden crash echoed through the house, shattering the idyllic scene. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. Screams pierced the night, and I felt a cold dread seep into my bones. Isabella's hand tightened in mine, her nails digging into my palm. "We have to go," she whispered urgently. "They're coming." Terror lent speed to my steps as I raced after her, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, lit only by flashes of lightning that illuminated the panicked expression on Isabella's face. Suddenly the floor gave way beneath me, and I tumbled into a dark abyss. When I landed, I cried out, scrambling to my feet and brushing dirt off my clothes. The air was stale and heavy, and the faint glow of dawn filtered through cracks in the ceiling. Around me were piles of rubble and debris, and in the corner, I saw the shattered remains of the box. Had it always been here? Was this the real basement? As I made my way to the surface, the first rays of sunlight touched my skin, and I realized with a start that I was no longer wearing the clothes I had come to the house in. I was dressed in old-fashioned clothing, a man's suit that felt strange and constricting on my frame. Glancing down, I saw that my hands were no longer mine, were gnarled and aged. The skin stretched taut over knobby joints. Shaking, I rushed to a puddle and stared in disbelief at the haggard face that stared back. It was my face, yet it was a stranger's as well, weathered and lined with an age that brought tears to my eyes. Panic seized me. Who was I? What had happened to me? Then I remembered Isabella, her terrified face in the darkness, her desperate cry echoing in my ears. Had I trapped her down here with me? My heart ached with a profound sadness. As the first rays of dawn crept through the cracks in the boarded windows, I stumbled out of the basement and into the cold embrace of the morning. The house stood before me, silent and unyielding, its secrets buried deep within its walls. And as I turned to leave, I saw the figure of a woman standing on the porch, her form shimmering like a mirage. It was Isabella, her eyes filled with an ancient sorrow. She reached out to me, her touch as fleeting as a ghost, and whispered, "You must remember." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the echoes of her words and the weight of a mystery that spanned lifetimes.